through those boys, I started smoking weed.
Yeah.
Right. And the weed story, how it comes about as well, is that now I'm frequenting with them. I'm chilling with them every time, but they know this guy doesn't smoke, this guy doesn't drink, right?
Mm.
So one day we're chilling, there's ladies again.
Yeah.
And now there's this one I really like this girl, right?
Sure.
So we're chilling in my friend's room, and they're doing all of those stuff. Excuse me. I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling like any other day I would chill. They light a joint. The joint goes around. Everybody smokes the weed. And when it gets to me, Kamu is the friend of mine. Kamu is like, Exe, dude doesn't smoke. Just pass that joint. That girl looked at me and she was like, you really don't smoke? I was like, nah, Kamu is actually... Nah, Kamu is actually full of nonsense. You know, I smoke, but not every time. Right? And needless to say, that evening, I smoked my first joint to the school things. That year, I actually I ended up deregistering for stats and XI. So that year, I ended up failing everything I was doing.
Yeah. Okay, we're back at it again. This is CareerDrip, and your leader, this technology is trying to give us problems. Eh?
Hey,
you know, I even remember, you know, my first, you know, when the academic year started in first year, there by FNB building, I think we had some assignment to do, like, you know, I think it was that thing that you have to write an essay of some book or something. And I didn't know how to use a computer even, you know. It was rough, you know, so we've been through the most.
It's our club, I even know.
You know. Yeah. So I have Mduduzi Vilakazi here on CareerDrip. This is where we come and profile different careers and different courses. And today, as I was still saying that the Vilakazi, you know, I mean, your surname is very famous. I mean, even have Vilakazi Street there by Soweto. And I was even saying now that our VC here, the Vice Chancellor of VES, Prof. Zablon Vilakazi, is there any relation there? Maybe are you related?
I wish, man. I wish we were. Not at all, man. I've never met the guy, to be quite honest, right? Never met the guy. I don't know him. It's just a surname. That's one. It's just surnames being the same. That's it.
It's quite interesting because I was like, I like looking into these things of lineage, you know, especially the history of ourselves as Black people, as the Bantu people, where are we from, and everything like that. And I'm telling you, man, somehow we're just related, you know.
No, somehow,
somehow, somewhere, you know, there was a Vilakazi who then branched into other Vilakazis, and then but you know, but anyway, Mduduzi Vilakazi has a very nice title. You know, this title of actuary, man, it's just a very, it has that thing, you know. Imagine when you arrive at a place and you be like, my name is Mduduzi and I'm an actuarial analyst, you know. It just, you know, and that time you're having some wine, you know, something, it has to go with something, and you're in a tuxedo, and, you know, it's just that term, man, you know. So Mduduzi is an actuarial analyst. So, an actuarial analyst, what do you do? Such a big term.
My side, straight dive into it.
Let's straight dive into it.
No stress, man. I think I've been trying to explain this to my mom, right? How can I explain it like lady,
Sure.
I try to dumb it down so that at least she can also understand. So I don't know how do you want me to put it, but I'm gonna try my level best, right? To put it in layman's terms. So essentially, Kiko spacing sari pension funds. So FSCA, Financial Service Conduct Authority. Yes.
Yeah.
So they require all pension funds in South Africa to have one statutory report that speaks on the assets of the pension, that speaks on the liability of the pension, and the movements of money within the pension fund itself, right?
Sure.
So, and usually that report is done by actuaries. So there will be an actuarial valuator that will sign off on that thing, right? But obviously us as analysts would prepare all of that and then give it to them for them to check as well and do their workings and correct us and then sign it off and then send it to the FSCA, and then also present to the board of trustees. But on the nitty-gritties of what really happens, then I'll say to you, what essentially I do, I'll take the data of all the members in a pension fund, and of that data of all the members in the pension fund, I'll then do an analysis of how much contributions did they make. Of those contributions, what returns did the contributions get? And from those returns, whatever that was distributed to the members, was it enough? So essentially, I'm an actuarial analyst. I deal with pension funds, right? In my pension funds, as I said, there is a report that is required by the FSCA, right? That report is usually prepared by actuaries. Sure. They require one a year. That report speaks on the financial soundness of the pension fund itself. So for instance, I'll make you an example, right? You are a lecturer at WITS, right? You are an employee at WITS.
Sure.
You pay Provident Fund, usually about 7% or higher, depending on your choice, of course, right? And then WITS itself, as your employer, it will also pay a Provident Fund on your behalf as well. So say you pay 7% and WITS says, I pay another 7%. So that makes 14%.
Sure.
Right? So of that 14%, then it goes into your pension fund.
Yeah.
So that's what starts the pension fund, that 14% of your salary.
Sure.
Right? 14% of your salary every month then goes to that pension fund. It starts that pension fund. So Ben contributes, and then now we have the amount in the pension fund. But within that amount, there are things that happen along the way. One of them is that amount, all of it will be taken to an investment house, which is an asset manager, right?
Yeah.
Because now all of that amount, remember, Ben is only going to withdraw this amount in the long run. We assume he's going to withdraw at retirement, right? Yeah. And obviously the assumption is you work for WITS until you retire. So when that money is sitting with the asset manager, it's earning returns or interest, right? And as it earns interest, me as an actuarial analyst, I track that return every month, which is called a unit price. So I do unit prices every month to track how your money has grown over that month. That's the one thing I do. And then the other part is that out of those returns that you got and your contributions, the fund itself attracts expenses, right? What sort of expenses? To have them analyze those returns, I'm an expense to the fund. So the fund needs to pay me. So the fund pays our company an administration fee, right? These guys who are asset managers that are making a return, they are getting a fee as well for giving you some sort of return, right? Yeah. And then where does that money sit when it comes back? It sits in a bank account. That bank account has fees as well, right? And the pension fund itself has to be audited as well. So you pay accountants to audit and see that everything is still going well. So there's some expenses that exist within that thing, right? And there's another expense that happens, which if you pass away, You know, like you hear those things, but if Ben has passed away and then gone through, but no, you know, usually when you read your contract, it will say if you die, we'll pay 2 times your salary.
Yeah.
Right. But who's ensuring that risk? That risk is an expense again to your pension fund. Maybe within the pension fund would select somebody like a discovery to handle things like that death, a disability happening to you. That is an expense to the fund, right? So that 14% of yours actually decreases. So it moves from 14% to about maybe 12% because the 2% needs to be issued to the discovery, needs to be issued to Mdu for doing these unit prices and all of that, right? So there's a movement of money that's happening at every point in time. Do you understand that? And if you remember our first year in varsity, what we were actually taught is that money actually is some sort of like a vector, if I can put it like that. I'm using vector loosely. Money has direction.
Some mathematics there. Like money is a vector. Like I'm just finished. Like what? No, the thing is, the reason why I'm so happy by this is that I was teaching a concept, in fact, not long ago. I think before not long ago on vectors, you know. And one student was even asking me, what is the real life application of this? Because you know, when we teach in pure maths, it's very abstract, and the student was like, but where can I apply this? And I remember explaining it using, you know, I think that the simplest way, you know, for people to understand vectors is through physics. You know, when you use physics, you use particles and everything like that. But that element that you've just dropped there, money is a vector. Like
money is money, because what happens is money has movements, right?
True.
So usually when they make the example, they speak about inflation to say the 1 rand, no, it's not the same as 1 rand in 20 years time, right? But for us, what we then tend to understand is that money can move, and depending on at what point you shift it to, it actually speaks. You know what I mean? So, and as I said, I'm using vector very loosely, but money moves, and once it moves, it's not the same as what it was before. So because of that reason, then what tends to happen is that you require an actuary to actually look at all of the movements of those monies, moving to asset managers, coming back to give to people that retire, to give to people that die. And now we had COVID. A lot of people died, right? We had to do an analysis of how COVID affected the pension funds. Because remember, if the number of people decreases, the pension fund itself decreases in terms of the money that it holds, you know? So we had to look at all of those analyses. And I think maybe I'm explaining it a bit better now to say what I do. It's looking at those unit prices, doing a report of the movement of the monies, and making sure that the fund is still able to pay its liabilities. Because once Ben wants to leave, he must get his money and his returns, right? So an actuary needs to make sure that if all of the people at VETS were to say now we are all retiring or we are all quitting and they want their money now, the pension fund must be liquid enough to be able to pay those people. And the people that make sure that that amount is there are actuaries, because they can be able to trace all the movements of the money.
Yeah.
So I'm part of that team.
I find that to be very beautiful because I can't remember the documentary that I was watching, but I was watching this documentary on, I think the name of the documentary was The Alchemists of Wall Street, and they were talking about financialization, like, you know, the funds and what they actually do in this institution. And man, it's like magic, you know, and also looking at how you start to be risk averse and start to calculate risk. In fact, that's a big part of your job, you know. In fact, and what you have explained right now, I think now for me, investments make sense for me, because, you know, whenever you talk about investment, you're talking about investment returns and everything like that. And sometimes you look at those investment returns, but you're like, but you said this, even the way they quantified the return Now
Yeah,
from the fees, that you have been accumulated all along, and the money moving from
sure.
to there and everything, it actually makes sense to me.
But let me give you one last thing. Like I'm just doing something interesting now, right? Because I'm issuing out my reports. No?
Yeah.
There's an analysis that just got added now. We are analyzing the replacement ratio of a person when they retire. So what I mean by that is at retirement, I don't know where we got that number, but we are using it to say at least you need to have 70% of your salary,
Okay.
right? When you retire at 65.
Sure.
You can't have 100%. And the reasoning why we're saying you can't have 100% is because the assumption is at 65, you are not owing a house, you are not owing a car and all of that. So literally you need your salary to survive. So now we are calculating that you won't need the 30% because we're assuming that your expenses that had to do with cars and all of that, things that you need would be 30%. So you essentially need about 70% to survive. So now we are actually trying to calculate how you can achieve a 70% of your salary by the time you retire with all of the interests that you are gaining and all of that. So we are sort of like moving your money forward so that we can put it at 65, and then at 65, look at how much you would be earning in relation to the fund credit itself, which is quite dope.
Man, and I can imagine the kind of mathematics that goes into that is insane.
Interesting stuff, dude. Interesting stuff.
I was reading from your profile in LinkedIn, and somewhere you said that you calculate the present value of the past and future earnings, taking into account probability, mortality, tax, investment returns, and other factors. And I'm like, goodness.
Yeah, man, it's interesting stuff, man. Shucks. I never thought I'd be here, but yeah.
Yes.
It's really interesting. I'm enjoying it. Man.
So, Upume Whiteville,
Yes.
Ikasi lakavusi Tembagwa.
Yes.
Are you from, like, sort of maybe not far from each other?
Not far from each other. My hood is very small. Very, very small. Like you can take literally 1 hour to Whiteville.
Yeah.
An hour you can go from A to Z of the hood. So yeah, Spumeka Seliwani, I think Ukule before me, Bengamazi until I went to varsity. That's when I started to know about him.
Yeah.
But Skule almost I think if I'm not mistaken, he's side. But he's close. He's very close. Very close.
Yeah, because he always references Whiteville in most of his talks and everything like that.
Yeah.
So take me from Whiteville, to Vets, now you're in first year,
Yes.
Like the grind is starting on, man. Like, how was your journey, bro?
Where do you start it? Do I start from the hood or do I start from first year of Vets?
Let's start from first year, like
first
now
year,
Upagat inside and everything is rolling out and everything like that, man. And you go for Actuarial Science.
Yes.
Why?
Funny story. Like any other kid, what happened was in December when I need to take you a bit back. December, I get my results, right?
Sure.
And the only things I've applied for is actually engineering.
Oh.
I'd applied for mechanical engineering, I'd applied for mining engineering, and I'd applied for industrial engineering.
Yeah.
So now, for holidays, I just passed, I went to his house to chill. He looks at my results. Actually, he called me when we got the results. He's like, Tonam, you got 4 distinctions, right?
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, thank you so much. I spend my time. And he says to me, we again Actuarial Science. no man, there's a friend of mine, I'll introduce you to them, and then bazokuchazela nge-actuarial science. Mind you, this friend of his is a chartered accountant.
Oh.
So now I meet this lady. She tells me, yeah, with your marks, because I had gotten, I think, 90% for maths and 90% for physics. So she's like, yo, your marks are really good. If you go to actuarial science, I think you will nail it. It's the most difficult course in the universe. You know, a lot of people find it hard to do, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, this sounds like a challenge. That time I'm feeling like a beast, right? Because I have these good marks. I'm like, okay, I can handle this. This is nothing, you know? I'm a beast. And then one of my best friends, Sakile Khatebe, which I matriculated with him, he got 100% maths, 100% physics. He had already chosen that he's going to do actuarial science, right? So I call him. I'm like, "Pana wena le actuarial science uyazilapha." Athi mina ntwana kudala ngincanya right vele. And bathi nzima ngifuna ukuyoyibulala. Ngithi man mawuku kuyoyibulala wena nami ngizoyibulala nawe, yabona?
Sure.
Cool. And that's point number one of not knowing what you want in life, you know, just like any other kid. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I plan me to tell you the honest truth, Ben. Now my plan from the hood was either I'm gonna be a gangster or I'm gonna be a policeman. Those were the two options I had, and that's why I wanted to take you back to my story, Sakokasi. But you wanted it here, but I didn't have a plan. I actually had no plan because I didn't see myself achieving the marks that I did in matric because of the type of kid I was, right? Okay, cool. Fast forward, this lady says actuarial science, Akila says actuarial science. I go to WITS for registration, and I actually asked to switch to put this actuarial science thing, right?
Sure.
They say to me, okay, cool, you can switch, but you need to meet a guy called Steven.
Yeah.
Steven Jurish, so that he can assess your marks. Be Steven.
Yeah.
So that he can assess your marks, and if he likes your marks, then he can take you. Okay, I'm like, okay, cool. And then we go to that Steven thing, and he looks at my marks. I didn't do well in English. So remember, it was English, physics, and mathematics, right? So I didn't do well on English. English, I got 69. So I think I had a level 5.
Yeah.
So at that time, remember, he used to have that thing of a waiting list to say, if you are in a waiting list, then apply for computational and applied maths and all of that and all of that. And then if I do take you, I'll take you. But if I don't, then you'll come back next year. You have to prove yourself by passing first year very well so that you can come back, right? Cool, I go home. I'm chilled. I'm not stressed. And then I think 2 days later, I get an email. I'm not sure now of how it went, but I get an email. The email actually says, you've been accepted for actuarial science, so you can come do actuarial science. So that's how I got into actuarial science first year.
Yeah.
Because now in the waiting list, I was part of the people in the waiting list that were chosen to actually come through and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do my first year. I do my first year at WITS. Crazy story, man.
Crazy.
So yeah, that's how I got to do actuarial science.
It is no doubt one of the difficult courses, you know.
Yes.
And the work that goes into it and everything like that. And I'm sure even in your journey, when you are in it now and everything is starting to move, and also the university life and everything like that, there maybe challenges were there and then everything like that. Any challenges that you had in university?
Too many. But if I take you through my challenges, I have to take you through the fun stuff that I did as well, right? Challenges first year, immediately when I got into university, what I didn't understand is that my brain had already taken in the fact that this thing is difficult.
So yeah.
So by virtue of starting, I was already losing, but I didn't understand that I was losing, because the fact that people all around kept on telling me that whatever you're doing is difficult, right? I met friends, and the type of people that I surrounded myself with didn't look at the course from a perspective of we can do this. They actually looked at the course from the same perspective of the people that I kept on meeting that told me that it's difficult. So Libo, now we're adding pressure to that thing. So now the difficulty came in when I failed my first test. My first test, I think for Actuarial Science, I think I got 12. And for stats, I think I got like 8 out of 50, by the way. So 12 out of 50, 8 out of 50.
Yeah.
Right? If I was surrounded by people that were looking at this from a perspective of, actually, we can overcome this, I think I would have been able to come back as well, because I'm an energy person. So I draw energy from the people that surround me. You know, I got to understand that later. But at that time, I was drawing the energy from everybody who was surrounding me, and whoever was surrounding me didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So that means I was part of that darkness that they were in. And I never came back. So after failing, I kept on failing in Chan. I failed until the last end of December. I failed. So I failed my first year stats. I failed my first year actuarial science.
Yeah. And you know, like,
so,
it's a very difficult, because I was talking to these other students the other day, and you know, and you start to see students now, because I remember talking to this other student, and I knew the student from like church things, you know.
Sure.
And then now they came back to me, and you know, they're even telling me that, hey, now I'm drinking, dude, you know.
Yeah.
Cause it's moving, you know, like I don't know what to do, I'm smoking, and all of those type of things. And these are things that happen, and sometimes we don't talk about these things. We, like you said earlier on when we were before we started recording, that sometimes we talk about the achievement story, but we don't talk about the grumblings in the way and what people go through. But then the next thing, you're rolling out in a Rolls Royce. And I'm like, yo, dude, Anna, you know, people don't see the journey. They don't see, and also when you are hyper successful, you don't share the bad side of your journey. You sharing the good and be like, you know, and everything like that. But in the real world, people get depressed, people lose hope, and they have other alternatives. Have you encountered some of those things?
Hey, dude, I've encountered a lot of things. And it's good now that we are covering this now, because when I'm a billionaire, I don't think I'll be able to speak about this stuff, because I'll be having a lot to lose, you know. So it's good that we're covering this now. So I'm gonna give you all the juice. I'm gonna give you all the juice. So first year, I can tell you now, I didn't date. I didn't date anyone first year. School was my life. So I spent my time in the library. I spent my time in my room, and literally I was watching series. I got addicted to series because I was failing so much. And now what I used to do is I would go to the library and get there and study 30 minutes and then watch series the entire time. Right? Because now I was chasing the feeling of feeling good that I was at the library than being productive. You get what I mean? So because now I'm in this hole now where I believe Lynn it's difficult and fail. So I was part of those people. But at the same time, I needed to convince other people that I'm studying, so that when people ask, library, you know, and you can't make noise, you need to be quiet. That time, Suits was still the it thing. I was watching Suits, you know, and there was no productivity. The kids are not. So class maybe finishes around 3:30. I go to my place, I eat. After eating, I come back to the library. My roommate would watch me and so that used to give me comfort to hear people saying right? But I wasn't studying, I was watching series. So I wasn't dating, I wasn't doing anything. I was literally going to class, listening, coming back, going to library, watching my series, study for that amount of time that I study, come back home, and then sleep maybe 3-4 hours. I wake up, I'm tired the next day. Either if I'm really tired, the series the entire night, maybe I won't even attend class, and then I go back to the library and do the same process again, right? So there was no productivity. And then as I said to you, I failed, right? After failing, I then said to myself, Ntwana, mara sizamile lento ukuthi siye library, siphaphe, senze ngathi siyafunda and asifundi, right? How about now we try something different, right? We try to study in our room, we try to ask questions in class, and then we actually study, right? Cool. Then I do that, Ben. Second year, funny enough, I actually had 13, if not 12 subjects. I'm not particularly sure, but I had nine. I think 9, if not 10 subjects, 9 or 10, right? I started to be productive in second year, so much so that I passed all of my subjects and I got a distinction in computational applied maths. So I even added computational. So I repeated stats, I repeated actuarial science, I did maths 2, and I did ecos 2, and I added computational and applied maths. So those subjects, you know, I get they break them down and then and all of that. So at some point, I think I had 9 subjects. But because now I was so serious and I understood where my problems were, I passed everything done. Second year, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, third year comes. Now I'm doing second year actuarial science. I'm doing second year stats. But now I don't take maths 3 and ecos 3. No, I just left those. I just did these 2.
Sure.
Now, understand something. I have 2 subjects, and that means I have time on my side. Right? This is where the juicy stuff comes in now. I'm now answering your question.
Yeah.
So I'm staying at a place called Clifton Heights, right? First half of the year, obviously I get externally momentum earlier last year. That tells me that I'm good and I can push.
Yeah.
Right? And then second half of the year, I keep bumping to guys right? And these guys are smoking a joint. They're smoking weed, they're drinking, and they're always chilling.
Like they're happy, you know?
They're very happy, Joe. But they're very happy, Joe. But I'm like, don't try. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And then one day, one of these boys says to me, you know,
Yeah.
and at that time, you know, that thing, I'm studying actuarial science. Like everybody would look at you on some, this is the man, you know. So now when he asked this question, there's girls around.
Oops.
Right? And he's like, what are you studying? Actuarial science. I went, the way the girls are looking at me, my smile, I'm like, I'm like, I get some and then I come back. I don't know what said to me, come back and chill. Well, actually, I do know it's the girls because the girls were smiling and they looked intrigued by me, you know. And so when I dropped my bag, something said, go back and chill. Right? Mchana. That day of chilling with those boys, it fucked me up. So it fucked me up on one side, but boy, that was the best time of my life. Because through those boys, I actually discovered who I am. But discovering who I am means I had to go through a lot of trying and changing and letting go of things. So through those boys, I started smoking weed.
Yeah.
Right? And the weed story, how it comes about as well, is that now I'm frequenting with them. I'm chilling with them every time, but they know this guy doesn't smoke, this guy doesn't drink, right?
Mm.
So one day we're chilling, there's ladies again.
Yeah.
And now there's this one I really like this girl, right?
Sure.
So we're chilling in my friend's room, and they're doing all of those stuff. Excuse me. I'm not doing anything. I'm just chilling like any other day I would chill. They light a joint. The joint goes around. Everybody smokes the weed. And when it gets to me, Kamu is the friend of mine. Kamu is like, Exe, dude doesn't smoke, just pass that joint. That girl looked at me and she was like, you really don't smoke? I was like, nah, Kamu is actually, Kamu is actually full of nonsense. You know, I smoke, but not every time. Right? And needless to say, that evening, I smoked my first joint. And that evening, I slept with that girl.
What?
Right? Yeah, I slept with that girl that evening. I smoked a joint that evening. And dude, I was so happy. And remember, this thing, it took me back to my old life before I became a nerd, because I became a nerd around grade 10, 11, right? But before that, I had a life. Now because Kotani, like
Oh.
like I used to do all of those things, you know. So that environment of my friends took me back to that era, right?
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it so much that after I slept with that girl, right, I started smoking weed regularly. I
Sure.
started to drink,
Sure.
right? And I became a beast with women at Clifton. Like I had my own fair share of women where I was like dating a lot of women, experimenting with women, and just being a varsity kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I had my fair share of just being a varsity kid. Because I had time. I'm doing two subjects, so I
Yeah.
had so much time. And dude, I was dating left, right, and center. And by dating, I don't mean bekejola. Like I would devil there and there, you know,
Yeah.
like kyatsena kyatswa, kyatsena kyatswa. You know what I mean? And by the way, I need to put a disclaimer. I respect women. I really do. It's
Sure.
just
Sure.
I'm speaking my story from being a kid, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
living my varsity life to the fullest, you know.
Sure.
That year, I actually, now coming back to the school things, that year I actually I ended up deregistering for stats and XI. So that year I ended up failing everything I was doing
Yeah.
because of the amount of time that I was spending with my friends,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I started smoking weed regularly. I started drinking, and those were the things I was dabbling in. And I started sleeping with a lot of women,
Yeah.
like a lot of women. And yeah, man, that was insane. That was insane. So now fast forward the following year, I'm not excluded. So what happens is I'm not excluded because I think I was able to do maths 3 and equals 3,
Sure.
right? And let go of these two, because now I'm realizing, this actuarial science, right?
Yeah.
So I came back, I did maths 2, maths 3 and equals 3.
Yeah.
But the funny part, when Ben, is that when I'm home, got December, this is 2014 December. I'm saying to myself, because remember, this thing happened in the 6-month space, right? The second half of the year.
Sure.
Dude, I had a bet with myself that said, I want to redo this, but I want to do it to its fullest. I want to be the best I can be when it comes to women, when it comes to having fun. Like I left home telling myself that
Yeah.
I'm not going to school. And that was 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yeah, it was 2015. It was 2015. 2015, I went to school not to study or not to pass, right? If I put it point blank, I went to school to live at Clifton, to date women, to drink, to get high, and to live the varsity life to the fullest. And guess what? I did exactly that.
Yeah.
I did exactly that, Chan. I never attended classes. I was never in classes. If I was, maybe Rangwala or something is happening. But I spent most of my time in Clifton, so much so that I was famous in the whole building with my friend Kamu. We were that famous, right? I remember at some point, I think this was maybe towards July. Kamu and I get out of the building. We look at the building, and the building has 15 floors, right?
Sure.
I think 15 or 14. So the numbers were, I think, the odd numbers, I think, were women, and the even numbers were men,
Yeah.
right? And I was counting with Kamu how many women I had slept with from each floor of women, counting the names, and how many each floor I would have slept with.
Sure.
So I do that. So that's why I'm saying that it was the bad side, but it was also good, because through all of that, I wouldn't say nonsense, through all of that discovering myself, I met my beautiful wife. I met my wife in Clifton, and she actually was the last person I dated at Clifton, and she changed the rest of my life.
Man.
You know? And if I didn't tell myself that I'm going to school not to study but to fool around, I don't know if I would have met my wife. Were the circumstances good under the way I met her? Well, not really, but dude, I have the most beautiful, amazing, kind, and best wife ever. You know what I mean?
Bro.
And I met her through that time of my life where all of that was happening. Ben, I remember one day, Kinwala, there was supposed to be a test, yeah, final exam, yeah, maths, yeah, the following day. I didn't pitch up for that exam because the night before I was partying in Pretoria at a club called Blue Room, and I came back at 4 a.m. That insane. My 2015 transcript has that was my first time seeing that thing. It has FABS, which is FABS. That means you failed because of absentia, not because of anything else. You didn't show up to write. I had 4 of those.
Yeah.
I had 4 of those. So yeah, man, I had a time of my life in varsity, but that allowed me to grow as well. So yeah, I did almost everything, man. Sorry, I took up most of the time speaking about that.
No. You know, the juice, you know, people want the juice, you know, and you're drinking the juice as well. No, the thing is, I like that because in most of the time we try to sugarcoat, you know,
Sure.
our journeys to whomever that we talk to. And the thing is, what you're saying is, it's not unique, you know.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, even
No,
now,
not at all. Not at
not
all.
at all. I was
Not
like,
at
I
all.
deal with students every day, and
Yeah.
you know, like every, and then the thing is, some students are very open with me. They will just be like, hey,
Sure.
this is going on, like I'm having dating issues, like I really just can't,
Yes.
you know, what's going on and everything like that. And you realize that actually some of the things you don't know what to say, you know, you just
Yeah.
you just like, hey, I think this needs a professional help. We need to go to CCTV
Yes.
because I can't,
Yes.
you know, those type of things. These are things that students go through, and as students we go through that, you know.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
everything.
Because
But we don't talk about those. And when people are in those situations, they're even more lost because they are sort of like because they can't reference anyone. Not to say that they should reference, but when you share a
yes.
story like that, someone is like,
Yes.
actually, I'm in the same story. So at least they know
Yes.
that this is not the end. Because if you don't share a
Yes.
story, when someone finds themselves in that story, they think that it's not normal
They are
and
the only one.
they're the only one and it's
Yeah.
done with me. You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? So it's wow, it was crazy, man. You had
Man,
it was crazy.
it
So
was insane.
and I remember reading this other quote. It was saying something like every experience, whether you can view it as a good experience or a bad experience, because that experience in kind of societal standards that will be deemed as a bad experience. But that quote was saying that
Yes.
like it's more like everything in life has a reason. It was along those lines, you know, that
Yes.
actually in every experience you can draw even much more than you ever thought.
Yes.
Even if it's the worst experience that you think is the worst, but you can draw out. So how do you come back from that? Like, what was the lessons from that? Because like I said, you know, there are many students that are dabbling in that, in that kind of things, and some unfortunately they get excluded, then it becomes the
Yes.
end and everything like that. So
I got excluded as well, by the way. Yeah, I got excluded. That 2015, I got excluded.
Were you able to come back?
Yeah, I appealed.
Yeah.
And they took me back, because also some of the reasons maybe why I was lashing out like that was actually because there were things happening at home, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was able to speak to the people, because I was able to speak to the people and let them know, "Hore, I'm gonna do better," because that phase was out, you know. But unfortunately, you can't say the phase is out, you know. But yeah, that phase was out, and I was able to speak to them. They reinstated me, and yeah, I'll share more about how then my path to getting better in passing and continue on with my life, how that happened. Yeah, but I did get excluded.
So how do you come back, and what life lessons do you draw from that? And because there is someone who's going to watch this and they're going through the same thing, what would you say to that person who's right in the middle of it as we speak?